this comment gives me the perfect opportunity to tell you guys my story about initially how and why I became an Uber driver. So, I've been a full-time Uber driver for about 3 months since I lost my corporate job. They consolidated and moved out of state. And previous to that, I did sign up for Uber in college as a driver for like food delivery, but I was definitely more aired towards doing DoorDash. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all that has changed since the time that I was doing it in the golden years. Back in the day, we had Postmates as well. But I never wanted to have people in the car with me. That wasn't my thing. I was scared of it. In fact, even after I signed up to be a driver, I was a little bit fearful and concerned. Luckily, I do have an older brother that has been an Uber driver full time for like 8 years. I think previous to that, he was doing Amazon and he found that he liked Uber a whole lot better. I started driving Uber because the car that I had that was paid off got completely destroyed by a faulty mechanic, and I had like basically zero recourse. It was a very traumatic situation, but the bottom line is I ended up without a car. At the time, I was working from home doing customer service. I was good at it, decently good, but I didn't really enjoy it, and I wanted to move more so into my passion, and I even wanted to go in person and work somewhere. So on faith, I just started applying to jobs in the niche, in the field that I wanted to work, and it just so happened where I worked from home was a sister company to this other company that I wanted to work for, and I got to work in live TV. That was super cool for me because my bachelor's degree is mass communications TV production, and yet I had never worked in live TV. And to be so close to live TV every single day was just so cool, and it just really fed my inner child. But before I could get to that point, I had to figure out how the heck was I going to get to work. I did not have a car. At the time where I was going to start this job, it was hurricane season, so AAA did not have a bunch of cars. Enterprise and all the other places, it wasn't worth the rental price. It was very expensive. I could have maybe gotten a vehicle through Turo, but even that was expensive. Like, I literally whipped out, I have a trusty notebook. I don't know if I have it in the car with me right now. That would be really cool if I did. I don't think I do. But I had this notebook where whenever I'm in like a really tight bind in my life, where I write things down. So I was like, AAA, not going to work. Turo, not going to work. Enterprise, not going to work. Like, what options can I flex to be able to get to work? Because when I did the calculations, and this is going back to your point, when I did the calculations, getting an Uber just to and from work for me, and it was only let's say only 20 minutes is a decent ride, especially now that I'm an Uber driver. Seeing that, I get that perspective. But for me, just going to and from work 4 days a week, not 5, 4 days a week, it was gonna cost me about $250 a week just to go to and from work. In my particular situation, I'm a single mom, so I needed to have access to my kid. And I see my kid. I know everybody doesn't have this privilege, but if I don't keep her with me, I do see her every single day. So I needed a way to get to and from there. And getting an Uber was just not even an option. I was going to be spending my entire paycheck just getting Ubers. I think somebody responded to your comment and said, how many errands are you running a day? Some people have 5. I think that's very well true, because I could see myself in 6 or 7 Ubers a day just to get to my day-to-day needs. Like, getting to my kid and getting to work are day-to-day needs. And when I didn't have a car, I would walk a lot of places, luckily, but that's even a privilege, living somewhere where you can even walk. Not to say the walks were easy, but I could walk there, or I could catch the bus. But during certain hours, the bus isn't available. Where the shift that I was working was overnight. Well, not overnight. It was 4 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. So that's overnight. That's very late. And me personally, I kind of felt weird getting in an Uber at that time of night as well too. Long story short, what I found and what I landed on was signing up to be a driver with Uber. And once you sign up to be a driver with Uber, you can get access to their rental cars. So Uber has a partnership with Hertz, I think with Budget as well, some other places. If you're listening to this and you want to be an Uber driver and you want to have access to a car, only go through Hertz. Hertz is the only one that's worth it, at least in my market. Maybe somewhere else is different, but I did try to go to the other routes that were a little bit cheaper. The cheaper price isn't worth the hassle. Hertz is not without their faults. I have been double charged by them. Don't let that deter you from starting it. Just go in there being mindful. But if you're going to rent a car through Uber, go through Hertz. That's my recommendation. That's me. That's what I recommend. I went through Hertz. Hertz lets you rent a vehicle for $300 a week. At the time, the rep talked me into getting the electric vehicle. You do get more kickback as a driver. Driving an electric vehicle, you get more pay as an electric vehicle. The fares on the electric vehicles go down over time. So if you've ever seen someone driving a Tesla for Uber, they're probably renting it. They're probably paying $300 a week for that vehicle. There are cars that are cheaper, but any car that I personally felt like was worth it, with taxes and everything, it's $300. It can go up, it can be a little bit less, but the better cars are like $300 a week. And so for me personally, that ended up being a good option for me, because it's like, not only do I have access to a vehicle consistently over time, because the same thing with AAA is when I finally did get a car, I was in a big body Benz. Okay, it was a great experience, but it was very stressful. I didn't have the extra $30 a day to be spending on a car. But I did, because I need access to a car. But with Uber, it's like consistently the same amount every single week. I get to keep the car as long as I'm meeting my baseline. Uber requires you, if you're renting a car, to do, if it's still the same, 30 rides a week. 30 rides a week you have to do on the Uber platform. So I was working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I was working my full-time 40 hours, and then I was also driving Uber the other days. It was a hustle. It was a grind. It was not easy. But it really worked for me in that time frame. And at that time frame in my life, I was willing to do whatever it literally took to get to the mission. I was willing to do whatever needed to be done. And that was the way out that I saw. Fast forward, this job that I loved consolidated. I lost my job. I was laid off just like everyone else. So that's how I ended up doing the whole Uber thing full time. And in this period of time in my life, I'm in a current pivot, change, adapt flow. I've actually been, I think like the day after, or a couple of days after, if you go further down my page, I think it was back in July, one of the first videos that I was like, started my consistency was me saying, these are the parting gifts of me losing my job. And then I've just went on from there. So I get what you're saying, but I feel like that's only if you're like only staying within a certain radius of space and you don't have to go a lot of places that it's cheaper to not have a car. For me personally, I have to have a car, and there's nothing that's going to beat having my own car, because I can go when I want, do what I want to do, sit down and record videos like this and not have to worry about it. I would love for you to shed more light on your comment, because when I first read your comment, I thought like you were saying against having a car, and now I'm reading it, it's like you're saying just to break even. So now it makes it sound like you're saying a car is worth it. Don't know. Having a car is more difficult, but it was also stressful trying to get that $300 a week for the rental. Mind you, if you're willing to work driving Uber like 10 hours a day, you can make $300 in a day driving Uber. You can, especially if you drive during peak time, peak hours when there's the highest demand. So yeah, that's how and why I became an Uber driver, and more context around my confusion about people thinking that getting Ubers everywhere is cheaper than owning your own car.